So can I ask how do you go from the abstract? I mean, I thinking of the abstract syntax tree purely for the maths in the LaTeX or for the entire document.
I think it has to be both. And from my experience at the Open University, which is a bit limited in this regard, there are problems about text in mathematics, and you can get the sort of recursion of, well, you've got a piece of mathematics and there's some text in it, and then inside the text there's some mathematics, and who knows whether that becomes accessible or not. Yeah. So certainly from the tech point of view, you can put a table heading in you can put a section heading in a footnote. There's nothing that stops you doing that. Yeah. I think one of the key things is, does the mathematics translate nicely into MathJax? Because for accessibility, that's part of the gold standard. Certainly, if you've got a piece of, for many documents, you can divide it into large amounts of text with islands of mathematics. And you might want to deal with the mathematics in a separate manner. It's certainly a sort of separate mode of existence. Have I answered your question more or less, Sean? I think
no, you didn't answer my question. You answered the kind of opening. Let me clarify what you're talking about before I ask my question, which is then, given the abstract syntax tree, then how do you measure the complexity? Are there standard tools for that?
Complexity is not simple. I think tools have to be developed, and I would hope that if people want to measure complexity and got ideas how it should be measured, they should be able to plug in their tool and measure the complexity. You certainly get sort of things that help you describe, understand, you know, the reading age of this document is. You get tools of that nature, and they're obviously heuristic, and they can clearly be gamed one way or the other. But I'm just going on the view that any feedback you can give to the author early is better than feedback given late.
Indeed, yeah.
And if they're using a syntax checker or an accessibility checker and they're starting to get feedback, then that's the beginning. And if you're able to, so to speak, instrument the feedback so that you can accept corrections, if you like, then that's probably good too. But that's looking a long way ahead. I sort of have in mind, they're very common in the United States, the Office of Student Disability Support, whose job it is as a disabled student is taking a course and they have some problem. It could be any sort of problem, but some of the problems would be math problems. And it might be that they're taking this book. Can you take the scans or the PDF of this book and produce an electronic copy? So that's the sort of job that the Office of Student Disability Support does. And the idea I have in mind at the end of the day is make it much easier to produce an accessible one-page document. Now, I see Patrick possibly nodding his head. Can't hear you, Patrick. You're muted. You're not muted.
My Linux computer, so it's a little more iffy how the hotkeys and stuff work. So I'm, more implementation focused programmer type. So maybe I'd ask a few questions, maybe just to concretize things a little bit. And sorry if they're getting ahead of where you're at with the project. Ahead. Yeah. So I was wondering now, would this be how are you imagining this? Is it a web application that people upload a PDF to, or is it something that could then be integrated into tooling that generates PDFs? Or I'm wondering how you instantiate it or how users would use it, just out of my own curiosity.
Okay, let me answer that one very quickly. I actually don't want to deal with PDF at all. I
Just we'd work with the LaTeX.
I want to know if the LaTeX is accessible.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So it would generate the AST. It would do the generation. You know, it's how then okay, I'll ask another annoying practical question. First of all, I actually want to take a step back and say I think this is a useful and necessary project. It does from my perspective, it definitely intimidates me because I know how hairy LaTeX can be, how hairy PDF can be, and how, you know, this stuff can, and also this area of whenever you're trying to match something abstract or like something, you know, like an AST or something like that to semantics, and then you're trying to define rules around that. It's definitely not impossible, but it's definitely a lot of work. So, and it requires a lot of domain expertise. But I think that someone needs to do it, and so any way we could support you, I think would be amazing. Anyway, so